Welcome back. This is John Locke, and today I'm answering a question about updating old content. Question goes, I have several clients who have old content and rankings that are slipping. I've had varying success in the past with updating old content for better rankings. Wondering what your best practices are for updating content for maximum effect. How are you game planning, and what are the rules that you live by? So the first thing I do if I notice that I have a client slipping, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for info that could be updated. That could be any type of thing where there's outdated information. Maybe there's a change to stuff. I know on my site, I have a page that ranks really well. It's a social media colors chart. I'm constantly having to update that. Social media platforms change their brand colors from time to time. And so I have to change that. I have another page that has ranked really well for about 3 years, and it's all about Google review stars. And I had to update that as things changed because back in the past, they wouldn't show stars unless you had 5 reviews, then it was 3 reviews, then it was 1 review. They used to use a Bayesian average to calculate. So you had to get almost like 10 reviews before they would show you as a 5.0. Even if you had 9 5-star reviews, they would still show you as a 4.9. So people used to ask about that. So those are all things that I had to update over time on that particular page. It could be that information on your page needs to be changed. Another thing that you could look at is look at what's actually ranking. What can you determine from that? So one thing that I just recently did for a client, and I'm not going to name the industry and I'm not going to name the client or the location, but basically they're a services business and they compete in local SEO. And one of their pages that they wanted to focus on over the next few months, I noticed it's at the top part of page 2 right now. But I was trying to figure out what can we do to get this to page 1. And one of the things that I noticed on his particular page is that some of the competitors mention a certain adjacent service to the one that page is about, but his page didn't. So that was a clue to me. It was a clue that maybe I should put that on that page. I should make a new section that mentions that. There are some other things that I noticed too, as far as the way that the layout of the page is constructed. And, for the most part, I'm looking at the majority of the pages that are in the top 10. So, looking for common elements, I noticed one other thing that was a common element. So look for things that the other places are mentioning that you are not. And the other thing is look for the majority pages in the top 10. Do they have certain sections, certain elements? Do they have certain images? Do they have videos? Do they have certain, graphs of information? Do they have a certain layout? Maybe that's a clue. Maybe it's a clue. So the third rule for updating content is I'm going to concentrate most of my energy on pages that are doing okay, but they're within striking distance of page 1 of Google, or if they're on page 1 and they're in the top 10, maybe they're not number 1. So how do we get them to number 1? And you could definitely improve some of the other pages on your site that aren't getting traffic, but you're going to get the most return if you focus on pages that are already getting a little bit of traffic or they're already getting some rankings, and you just figure out how you can improve those to get higher in the search rankings so you get more traffic. If you focus on pages that are mostly getting no traffic at all, you might get a little bump from that. But if you focus mostly on the pages that are doing all right, and then you try and make them stellar, that's going to help you a lot. The fourth rule of updating content is measure what you did. So SEO is like the scientific method. You make an observation, you form a hypothesis, you form a control test and you test your theory and you measure the results, and then you go back and readjust your hypothesis. So this is exactly what you want to do. If you make a change or a change is to a page, make sure you measure what you did and what happened. Now, Google is not going to change those rankings overnight. They're not going to change them the next day, might even not be the next week, but you want to pay attention to any fluctuations that you make after you adjust those changes. Google kind of builds a delayed reaction into their algorithm to make sure that you can't make a very quick change and then it reflects that in the rankings the next day, and then you know that that was it. There is a little bit of a delayed reaction in this to throw off people who are doing experiments. So measure what you did, see what happens, see if you go up if you make those changes. And because when you do go into Search Console, have people call up that page again, have Googlebot recrawl that page and re-index it, it will reevaluate it. Okay, fifth rule of adjusting content. Longer doesn't always necessarily mean better. I know a lot of people, they believe in the skyscraper technique because that's something that's been repeated a whole bunch of times. And it can have an effect, but just because you make a page that's twice as long or 3 times as long or 10 times as long as your nearest competitor, it doesn't always mean that it's going to rank higher. Can, but it doesn't always mean that. Most importantly, you're looking to be within the length, the word count range, mentioning the same things as your competitors, having the same sections, having the same types of elements, putting your own unique spin on it, but you're looking for commonalities. One thing that I do when I look at the top 10 results, I look at the word count of the pages that are in the top 10, the page 1 of Google, and I know that that's the range. Now, sometimes there will be pages up at number 2 or 3. They're not that long. The word count might not be that long. Maybe number 1 has got a very long word count. They might also have a very strong backlink profile. It's a lot of things. So take a look at that. Longer isn't always better. You want to be within the range. You don't want to have it be too short, but just adding length for the sake of adding length is not a good idea. You want to have purpose to what you're doing. The next last rule, watch for competitors that come out of nowhere. Sometimes you'll see a new site or a new page that Google is pushing. It's a competitor that previously had not been on your radar. Things to look for. How strong is your backlink profile? What does the content on the page look like? Now, if the content on the page looks like it's within the range of something that Google might want to try and rank, then I wouldn't get into a guessing game of saying like, well, our content's better than theirs. Maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I have a feeling that Google actually takes the user data from Chrome and uses that to figure out actual metrics, because not every site has Google Analytics. So they need a way to measure how sites actually perform under real humans. And I have a feeling that part of that is Chrome. It would make sense. So look for competitors that come out of nowhere and, again, examine what is going on their page. If they have content that's within the parameters of something that could be ranked, look for things that might be different in their page versus all the rest of the competitors in the field. Look for places that they might be being mentioned, their link profile, their social profiles, their review profiles, all those things you need to take into account. It's not only on page. Okay, so all those things add up, especially in certain industries. The review profiles are going to be really important. If your client is competing in local SEO and they don't have a Yelp profile, I would suggest that they get one. Okay, and here's one more tip. Don't be afraid to link out. I know a lot of people are really afraid to link out to places because they still believe that you can page sculpt and that linking out might be bad, but I think that it's a good thing, especially if you're referencing some scientific study from an organization that's closely tied to your particular industry and category, that might be a good thing to reference some material. And again, call back to what we set up here. Focus on what's happening in the pages that are ranking. Are they referencing any outside studies or papers or research? Just something to look at. Okay, so that wraps up the basic things of what I look at when I'm updating content. For pages that have done well, but maybe they're slipping down the ranks, or for updating content on pages that are within striking distance of the top 10. So those 8 rules will take you far. I'm sure I could add more if I just sat down and thought about it, but those are things that I basically look at. Hope that helps. My name's John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design and SEO. I'm here every single day making videos on SEO. Thanks to all the people who have come on and subscribed recently. Really appreciate it. I'll be back here tomorrow, and until next time, peace.